I guess from a college football standpoint, you know you've arrived when you don't make any real national waves. Nobody's really talking about you for the most part in terms of making inroads or splashes, but you've got a top 5 to 10 class in the nation. That's Dabo Swinney. That's Clemson. They are an elite program. They are right there in the top 3 or 4 in the nation, and that's where they belong and where he's established the program. And nobody's really talking about any huge storylines with Clemson football, but they're still right there and look to bring in talent unlike most teams in the nation. We got Grant Matheny on the line from Shaking the Southland, the SB Nation platform for Clemson. Grant, welcome to Mark Rogers TV.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we look at the recruiting class right now, #1 ranked in the ACC, #6 in the country. Is there anything that happened today that stood out to you? Anybody that Dabo was able to get or lose that changed the structure of this class?
Yeah, today we got Tyler Davis, who's a 4-star defensive tackle from Florida. So I think he's going to be a good player down the road. Also, we got Caleb Boding, who is a offensive lineman. He's certainly going to aid the kind of weak offensive line class that we've had this year. Only Hunter Rayburn's the only other offensive lineman we've been able to get this year. So definitely those two players are kind of big commitments, signees. But I think you hit it on the head there, saying not really kind of the splash commits. Certainly you look at Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, LSU. Those are the programs that are making lots of noise right now. Clemson's kind of just floated under the radar a little bit, and I think that's a good thing because, you know, top 10 class, #1 in the ACC, 90 overall average rating for all the players, and it's a pretty good class. So I think it's going to be a good class. There's lots of good players, so I'm looking forward to seeing how these guys play.
So what transpired last year was obviously the first ever early signing period, which showed us that that was going to quickly be established as the signing period with close to 80% of the Power 5 players signed in December. It's still going to be important what some teams do that first Wednesday of February, but not as much as it has been in the past by any stretch, because that was the day. With 26 signed right now, I can't imagine that there's a whole lot of room left in this class, but are there any other players out there that Clemson's looking to sign, or maybe on the fence looking at a short list that Dabo would like to get?
Yeah, Will Putton, who's a offensive line, will be committing tomorrow. He's deciding between Florida State, Auburn, Clemson. I think right now Florida State and Auburn are the two front runners. I think if Clemson was able to scoop him up, it would be a pretty big deal. 4-star offensive lineman. It doesn't really look like he's going to be committing right now, but certainly if he does, it would be a big deal. But yeah, I think you kind of said it. 26 commits, not really a ton of room to grow there. It's already been a fantastic class. So
Grant, who do you really like out of this class? Anybody in particular? And not necessarily just going by the star rankings, but based on what you've heard, based on what you've read and seen on tape.
Yeah, definitely there's some guys that really stand out to me. Joseph Charlton, who's a 4-star safety. I think he's going to be a really good player. He's a really hard-hitting safety, really athletic. Not the best guy in coverage, but I think he'll be able to develop into being a good coverage guy. He'll certainly be a great end to the addition to the back end of the Clemson defense. Jalen Lay, also a 4-star tight end, really stands out to me. Coach Brett Venables, the defensive coordinator, actually said that he was the most impressive prospect at any position that he's seen. So that's certainly high praise coming from Brett Venables. I think he's going to be able to really stretch the field for Clemson. Also, Rook or Thoro, I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly, my bad. But he's really intriguing because he's only played 2 seasons of football. He was previously a basketball player and then was convinced to transfer over to football. He's a defensive lineman, 3-star defensive lineman from Michigan. So obviously football's worked out for him pretty well as he'll be heading down to Clemson. And then obviously you got guys like Andrew Booth, Frank Gladson, Joe Ngata, who are going to be really good. There's no doubt about how good they are.
Despite this basically taking a front and center for most college football programs, there's only 4 teams playing in the playoffs. So the focus has been divided for the coaching staffs, and it's a real challenge to make it through December, not just preparing for a bowl game, but preparing for the reason that the teams assembled in the first place, and that's to win a championship with Notre Dame and the Cotton Bowl front and center on December 29th. Vegas has installed you as a pretty solid favorite, around 10 to 12 points. What are your thoughts about the game? Are you hearing much concern from the fan base in regards to this matchup against Notre Dame?
I haven't heard too much concern. Everybody seems pretty confident that we're going to be able to get the win. I agree. I think we're like 11-point favorites right now. That's about what I would see. Notre Dame's had a really good year, undefeated. That's nothing to. That's a really good season. Clemson obviously undefeated as well, but I think just the talent, the speed, the athleticism for Clemson will be able to prevail. I think they'll eventually get the victory. Notre Dame's extremely well coached, just like Clemson, but I think Clemson is the better football team, and I think they'll be able to make the trip to the national championship.
All right, Grant Matheny from Shaking the Southland. Please join him, Ryan Cantor, the rest of the crew there at SB Nation to cover Clemson football. You can join them right now as they wrap up National Signing Day there at Clemson. Obviously, it's a 3-day process, so a few more guys, as Grant mentions, the offensive lineman Putnam in particular, hopefully for Dabo and his staff, ready to be joining the Clemson community there. All right, Grant, we appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me.